Good morning. Welcome to Unity of Chautauqua. I'm Reverend Barbara Williams, and it is so delightful to have you here. So, I would like to invite you now to sing along as we do our welcome song.
We come together in this moment. We bind our hearts and minds, for we all formed a tapestry woven from one life, one creation, undivided, all unique expressions of God. We come together now in one accord. We come together in this moment. We bind our hearts and minds, for we all form a tapestry woven from one life, one creation, undivided, all unique expressions of God. We come together now in one accord.
So, would you join us now in prayer? And so, the invitation is called that divine presence that moves in us and through us as the beloved. And I've put the prayer up here so that you can just, sometimes it helps to read it. Other times you may wish to close your eyes. So, whichever is your way of holding this prayer in this moment, would you join me? So, we thank you, this beloved, for a new day, for its beauty and its light. Thank you for my chance to begin again. Free me from the limitations of yesterday. Today, may I be reborn. May I become more fully a reflection of your radiance. You give me strength and compassion and courage and wisdom. You show me the light in myself and others. May I recognize the good that is available everywhere. And so we say this in the name and the nature of that inner Christ that lives within us and within all. Amen. And so we have been doing over the since I'm trying to think, last November, we have been doing once a month, the first of the month, the 5 invitations. And we are on the fifth of the invitations. But if you've come across our videos and you have not heard the other 4 invitations, just go back to you can go back to Unity CHQ and get to our YouTube channel and go look at those. And you can also, there's something really neat is that in the summer, Unity of Chautauqua is in Chautauqua Institution. We've invited 9 ministers there, Unity ministers from all over, and we will be putting that on YouTube and on our Facebook page And it's already on right now on our website, so you can go and look at what the summer's holding so that you can again enjoy us on video. So just a reminder, the 5 invitations is how to live our life such that we allow the fact that we're not living forever to make our life precious. And we've talked over these months about not waiting, welcoming everything, pushing nothing away in our lives, bringing our whole self to the experience in our lives, and then making sure we have a place to rest in the middle of things. And today's a really interesting one, which at first might sound kind of unusual. Cultivate, don't know, mind. So let's see what that's about. And so you see this little kid is questioning what's going on. What does that mean? So Janine is going to sing us into the beginning of me sharing cultivating don't know mind.
Bring it on, everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. I'm through crying, I'm through waiting, I'm through hoping against all hope. I'm through longing for something gone that'll never return. I think I finally learned to bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. I'm through grieving, I'm through dreaming that the life I had is ever coming back. No more wishing on someone else's star that'll never be mine. I think it's time to bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. And I've survived many times before, broken hearted and slamming the door. I'll be alright, yes I will, once more, just as I did back then. I'm gonna rise again, so bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new.
Thank you, Janine. And so when I think about this song, Everything Different, what calls to me is not that I want my life out here to be different, out in the world as much as I want the way I see my life, from a place of seeing deep blessings, the sacred in life. And that's the everything new. And so, one of the tools for that, to me, is cultivating not knowing. Cultivating not knowing mind. Now, if you've never heard that before, maybe if you've studied Buddhism, you would have heard this. But if you hadn't, you'd go, well, excuse me, does that imply that we're kind of ignorant? And that's not what it means at all. What it really is referring to is this spontaneity, this way of being in the moment that isn't so cluttered up with all the past ways we've seen life. It's being fresh and creative, being receptive, being in awe, being in wonder of the world. And therefore embracing. It's as if our life has been given this beautiful new awareness of everything around it. When we selected this book last summer, actually, part of it was because I turned 70 and I realized that I wanted to just really embrace life in a deeper level. Most of my life, I'm like a type A, let's get things done. I'm on automatic pilot. And somehow I realized at 70, I might not have as many years as I think I have. I don't know what it's bringing, but I want to bring it on in a new way, in a deeper and a passionate way that just makes these next years very meaningful. And so in our book, he talks about ignorance that is, it's not about being ignorant, but he also says that we misunderstand ignorance because we think that means somebody doesn't know anything. But he said it's really, and this was funny, he said, sadly, it's not knowing. It means that we know something, it's just the wrong thing. And that got me laughing because my daughter was talking to me and she was talking about how so many of us are into willful ignorance. So before we can have this new vision, we kind of got to look at our willful ignorance, right? And it's real easy to see if you're looking at people that are following conspiracy theories. You can go, oh my gosh. And there's a willfulness about it. And there's an ego involved. It's very easy to say, wow, gee, I know something you guys don't know. And it's very secret, and I found it out. And many of us are shaking our heads going, that is so ignorant. That is so not the whole picture. But when I started looking at myself, I thought, I'm willfully ignorant too. I don't always explore a big view of the world. I have my tight little lanes that I think, from politics to people I meet to things. And one of the parts of this book that's really inspired me is to think, maybe there's a lot I don't know. And maybe I want to cultivate that. And so the Zen master, Suzuki Roshi, spoke this, and you may have heard this before. I love this saying. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. But in the experts, there are few. So there's good things to be an expert about, right? Can be good to know how to do our finances, to expert. But when it comes to our connections with each other and things, the gift we can give each other and to the experiences in our life is this beginner's mind, to cultivate it. So here's what he says in the book, Frank, our author. I call him Frank O because his name's so long. Don't know mind is not limited by agendas, roles, and expectations. It is free to discover. When we are filled with knowledge, when our minds are made up, it narrows our vision, obscures our ability to see the whole picture, and limits our capacity to act. Wow. Guilty. I'm guilty of all those things. And I'm really working at undoing them so that I can experience this joy of what I haven't been seeing. We only see what our knowing allows us to see. The wise person, I want to be that, is both compassionate and humble and knows what she doesn't know. That's our invitation, to know, to become humble, to be open. And with it, that brings a creativity, a joy, an awe. So he goes on to say, we don't throw out our knowledge, throw it away. It's always there in the background. Now think about that. There's knowledge we'd never want to throw up, like what does a red light and a green light means, and the safety belts, and there's all sorts of rules that really are just givens that make life easier. But he says, there are times when we need it, but we still need to let go of fixed ideas. We need to let go of control. So there are those ideas that are useful, but those ideas that just keep us so safe in our little cocoons, and rather than coming out of that chrysalis and flying in a new seeing of the world. So Jesus says that's a very, very similar thing. And his favorite examples he uses all the time are children to demonstrate this. So every time that the disciples were getting into discussing who's right and who's wrong on a topic, and they did that a lot, Jesus would bring out little children and use them as an example. So I want to read a couple things for you about that, which I found interesting, like in Matthew 18:13. The disciples have just argued about who's the greatest in the kingdom. You can see that, right? The winners and the who's the greatest in the kingdom? Which people are doing it right? And so when Jesus then, in the midst of that discussion, calls in little children, and of course, what do the disciples do? They say, "Oh, get them out. Get rid of them." And Jesus is saying something that I'm going to paraphrase in a slightly different way. He's saying, I'm telling you once and for all, if you don't go back to square one and start over like a child, you'll never be able to see a new reality. And that reality he would talk about in parables, the kingdom of God. He called it, and some people think it's something that happens after life, but in Unity we understand that the kingdom of God is a set of consciousness. It's a vibration in which we vibrate with the highest part, with that Christ within us. And so he's pointing to little children saying, they have something here. They understand. They haven't given up their awe, their wonder, their openness to new experiences. And you guys are closed down and are in that ego state, his disciples, about, well, who's the best? Who's doing it right? And then he goes on and does it again in Mark 10:15, because they're discussing divorce. And what should the rules be? And again, Jesus says, brings the little kids in. And again, the disciples are irritated. He just goes and spends time. And I like to think, when I was thinking of the little kids, when I was a kid, we had this picture that we were given in Sunday school, and there's Jesus, and the little kids are looking so sweet. And they're all just in awe of Jesus. But I'm thinking, I would like these little kids, if I'm doing that picture now, they would be dirty, and they would be pinching each other and having fun. And Jesus would be sitting in the middle of that, just like, oh, wow, this is what a blessing that he's blessing them, not because they were just sitting well behaved, but because they were engaged in life. They were excited by life. And he was excited for them. So that's my new picture from that Sunday school age, is that he's inviting us. And then again in Matthew 19:14, same thing. This time they're talking about celibacy. Is that part of the spiritual journey? And he interrupts them again and points to children. And so maybe he's telling them, you know, you're into this right and wrong, but the truth is, you're not seeking truth, you're seeking control. And there's good reasons we seek control, is there not? There have been things that have happened to us in our lives. And it really takes a lot. This is not an easy thing. Well, I'll just go and just get out of that seriousness that I've been in, and I'm just going to play, and I'm going to be in awe. There's an undoing of the thing that got us into that seriousness, that got us into these protective layers around us to keep us safe. And so we don't discount that. We honor that. And we know that we're more than that. And we recognize the control that Jesus recognized in the disciples. Yes, I'm trying to control it. I'm trying to keep it all safe. But maybe I'm only living half a life. And so that's our invitation to get a beginner's mind again. And to even think about this with children. When they get upset, it's not like their life is perfect and they're just happy and in awe. Sometimes they're crying and they're mad, but they're feeling it. And then they're moving beyond it. And so that's our invitation too. And sometimes it's hard to go back to that being vulnerable. And as we mature, we start learning that we are wise, that we can create a safe environment, safe enough, that our wisdom has developed enough where we understand there are certain people, and there's certain people we're not going to be in awe and wonderment, and it's not that time with them. But there's a lot of people that we've regulated into a definition of this is who they are based on their politics, their background, and we're not seeing the opportunity for that connection between us in new ways. So Richard Rohr says this. He says, when he talks about this having don't know mind and having a beginner's mind, he says this to himself, and I can't go try this. he says, I don't know anything. He approaches life in that way. He's a Franciscan monk, and he says this over and over to, I don't know anything. And he says, try saying that to yourself. I don't know anything. And then he goes on to say, maybe we could think of ourselves as an erased blackboard, ready to be written on. By the large, what blocks spiritual teaching is the assumption that we already know, or that we don't need to know. He tells us that we should pray for the grace of a beginner's mind. We can see that at the start of each day. Can you imagine that, saying, I'm praying this morning that I see life as a beginning way. As the blind men said to Jesus in Mark, I want to see. Feel that for a second. Take that word in. Can you imagine that there's some areas? I've been working on that. I've been working at people that have said things that I didn't think were good for our country, and that I could feel that pushback. And I could feel me cutting them out. And I've been saying that I want to see. I feel the pushing back in me. I feel the wanting to control them, to feel like they're hurting something, that they're dangerous. But that's not the whole picture. That's a very two-dimensional, of a three-dimensional, actually more than a dimensional, a vibrational world that's waiting to be healed through them, through me. And one of us has to see. And I'm watching it change relationships in my neighborhood and places I'm going. And this open-heartedness that's coming from me wanting to see, from me saying, I don't know who they are totally. I've made this, I've narrowed them in, and I've narrowed me in. It's not just them. I'm narrowing my family because I have closed down and protected and wanted to control. So he goes on to say, spirituality, Richard Rohr again, is about seeing. It's not about earning or achieving. It's about relationships rather than results or requirements. Once we see, this one really got me, this line. Once we see, the rest follows. There's so much power in that statement. Once I see, truly see with the Christ of my being, with a beginner's mind, with not knowing, a vibrational connection starts happening between us and others, and a knowledge that is beyond facts, but it's a wisdom that is. And how do we know when it's that we're seeing this world? It's because instead of feeling tense or wanting to push things away, we start feeling a connection that goes beyond their words, beyond their views. And it's what's calling all of us to healing our world. And especially as we're aging, it's just, I mean, I've lost some friends in my life. I'm realizing how precious the people in my life are, and I want to see them more clearly. I want to engage in relationship in a deeper Christ vision of us, and to realize that living in joy just as much as there are times of suffering. I want to be in that presence of seeing. So he goes on to say we don't need to push the river because we are in it once we see that life is the life is lived within us, and we learn how to say yes to that life. So we don't no longer have to push. We're no longer like paddling upstream, right? But we're going gently down the stream. There's a relaxed relationship with life. So back to our book, he talks about being present as a child. And I was thinking about that, like how I had to undo a lot of seriousness back in my late 20s and early 30s. And I just didn't like how life was turning out in many, many ways, from my job to my relationships to several things. And I had become very, very serious. And so I decided to take this workshop, and I may have mentioned this before, but it's really just so influenced me. I went to an inner child workshop. I had no inner child feel. I was like so lost. And I ran out in tears. And the minister, he's a Presbyterian minister, but also a therapist that was running it, he put his hands on my cheek, and I was crying and crying. They were doing this inner child things and painting, and there was going to be dancing. And I was like, absolutely not. I am in control of this very uncontrollable life. And he said, when you're ready, come back. He said, this is for you. And I did. And one of the things I learned lately, when I got into, like me who thinks I can't draw a thing except for some stick figures, and that's pretty much true. I don't invest any energy in drawing. But when I got to draw a picture of my inner child, you know who she was? And I suggest you do this too, even if it's stick figures. My inner child that I was ignoring, she was on a swing, and the swing was way, way up in the air, and she was jumping off of it as far, and she had her arms out, her hair was flying, because back when I was a little girl, I had this long hair, it's flying. And I did that. That was the inner child that's been sitting inside of me that I had suppressed down by getting the right education, getting the right job, getting the right relationships. And I was not vibrating at her anymore. But I know how. Now, I'm not getting on swings at this age, and I'm not throwing myself into the air, but it represents a vibration. Now, that's my vibration. You might have a different. My daughter, her vibration was never to go outside and do anything like that, the stuff I used to do outside, lots of adventurous things. Hers was to journal, and she would take all her stuffed animals and write a story about each one and their personality. And she made whole plays, and it was amazing to watch. Could I relate to that? No. So each of you have this inner child, and when you remember her or him, then you can say, now, what vibrates at that level? My husband came upstairs one evening and said, turn it on the channel. And they had a tribute to the Beach Boys and all these famous singers. And maybe you saw it. I forget which channel it was on this last week. But they sang the song, Good Vibrations. That was my favorite Beach Boy song. And I thought about that. And here I'm doing this lesson and I'm thinking about vibration. And so I went and looked up the lines to make sure. And it was saying, I'm picking up good vibrations. Now, I bet you're hearing the song. I will not sing this. Janine can sing it beautifully. I will not sing it. But she's giving me excitations. And the she inside of me, I went, oh my gosh, that's me. I was excited about life as a kid. And I'm getting more and more that way. Every time I practice the unity way of life, more and more things are that excitations that they sing on. And it says, close my eyes, she's somehow closer now. Softly smile, I know she must be kind. Take that, whoa. She inside of me, that I identify as a she, but if you're identifying as a he, then that he inside of me is close and is kind. And so the last line, going to keep those loving, good vibrations happening with her. I can just feel that song inside of me, asking me to remember that I know what good vibrations are and I know how to live them. So when we strongly identify with our rational mind, we forget our good vibrations. And so our invitation is to remember what it feels like and to gradually take all that protection away. And so then in our book, he talks about not knowing being intimate. So by not knowing, by not taking all these stories we have that limit us, and going back to not knowing, to that beginner's mind, he says it's an intimate experience. And first when I read that paragraph, I thought, I don't understand that connection, not knowing with intimate. But this is how he described it. He says, when we don't know where we're going, we have to remain fully present. So when I don't plan so strictly out how my life should be, and when I become open with not childish, but a childlike newness, I pay more attention. The world becomes more alive for me. He goes on to say, we have carefully feel our way inch by inch, moment by moment. We have to stay close to our actual experiences. When we don't know anything is possible because we are not limited by our old habits of thinking, of others, our points of view, we see a bigger picture. Not knowing leaves room for wisdom to arise, for the situation itself to inform us. And he goes on, there's an example in the book, and it's about him being at the side of a man that was near death in hospice. And you know, he's a hospice chaplain, our author. He's a Buddhist hospice chaplain. And the man, nothing he does from his bunch of knowledge is comforting the man. He's groaning and he's out of it. And nothing seems to work. And then he says he goes back into his body, into that feeling, and stops thinking about, what am I supposed to do here? And he says, a knowing came. And that's the knowing we're looking for. To become this seeing being, to see, to know. And he said he got up in the bed and he took the man in his arms who was twitching and gasping, and he said, and the man relaxed and he fell asleep in a peaceful sleep. And so it's not just the joyful things, it's the difficult things that we bring this don't know mind to. It's all of it. It's all of it. Because as he says in the next little chapter, he says, we are surrendering to the sacred. Just take a breath of that. I'm surrendering. When I have don't know mind, when I cultivate this beginner's mind, it's a surrender to the sacred. And Hafiz, the Sufi poet, said it this way: now is the season to know everything you do is sacred. And I would add to that, everything you are is sacred. From our book again, the sacred has always existed. Everything is saturated with it. It is the nature of reality. Yet most of the time we walk around in the sacred world with ordinary vision. It is though we are colorblind, unable to clearly distinguish the different hues of the spectrum. We don't always perceive or distinguish the sacred. We don't appreciate the full breadth of its beauty. We see in our conditioned way, staying on the surface of life. When we pay attention, however, we realize that the sacred reveals itself continuously. So before we enter meditation, I would like to read a poem. There's one that I got from a child's book that I bought about how to raise a child called Whole Child, Whole Parent. And I've had this, well, I've actually given the book away, but I've kept this one poem. And it's called The Song of the Seeing Being. The more we realize that seeing is the issue in life, the more interested we are in seeing. The more interested we are in seeing, the more we look at everything for what it has to teach us. The more we look at everything it has to teach us, the more we see that we are being taught. The more that we see we're being taught, the more we know that we are loved. The more we know that we are loved, the more we see love. The more we see love, the more lovingly we are seeing. The more lovingly we are seeing, the more loving we are being. The more loving we are being, the more we realize that seeing isn't the issue of our lives. So let's take that now into meditation.
I surrender to not knowing. I surrender to not knowing, to keep beginning over and over again, to keep listening over and over again. And I am willing to be changed by what I hear. And I am willing to be changed by what I hear. I am willing to be changed. I surrender to not knowing. I surrender to not knowing, to keep beginning over and over again, to keep listening over and over again. And I am willing to be changed by what I hear. And I am willing to be changed by what I hear. I am willing to be changed. I surrender.
So deep breath. And the invitation is to gently close your outer eyes. And to allow ourselves to be supported as we move into this present moment in a deep way. And we take those words, I surrender to not knowing. Take a breath with that and gently say that to yourself. I surrender to not knowing. It is safe, for I am wise. For there is within me a place of wisdom. The Christ of my being that can surrender to all the outer ways that we have been told we have to live. And I'm moving into a deeper knowing. I surrender. To not knowing the outer patterns of the world and moving to a deeper awareness. And so I begin over and over again. For as the world calls to see that this way, to be upset in this way, I keep beginning over and over, going back to this place of centered peace, to seeing with the eyes of the heart, with the eyes of love and grace. And as I practice this surrender, as I let go, I become willing to be changed by the voice of my soul, by the vibration of wonder and awe that is me. I am willing. I am willing to see, to speak, to live, to follow. To immerse myself in the vibration of joy and love and compassion. A beginner's mind. To see the awe, the wonder, the grace that is always present. To have my mind and heart open. I surrender to not knowing, to keep beginning over and over again in the silence. As the Apostle Paul said, be transformed by the renewal of our minds. As we open to that Christ mind. And he also said, the Christ in us is the hope of glory. And so I surrender. I become a seeing being, and I am taught. And so it is. Amen and amen.
And I am willing to be changed by what I surrender.
Thank you, Janine. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's following us through this adventure called the Five Invitations. For me, it's been a remembering. I can float away from these ideas sometimes for a while and get caught up in the world and the activities, and with all the things that have gone on, like COVID and the things we've gone through as a country. This is so vital right now. It's our gift to each of us changing the world in our sphere. So thank you for being part of that. And now we'd like to bless our offering. And so just want to mention that to you, that the gifts that you give are going to, we are having 9 Unity ministers come in the last Sunday in June. It begins, we will not be Zooming it, but we will be recording it, and it'll be on YouTube. You can look at our website now, unitychq.org, and see the wonderful people we're going to have them, and they're life-changing messages. But not only that, it's life-changing for the ministers that we are able to support coming to Chautauqua Institution. Their job is hard out in the field, and they get this week of learning from other people and sharing and experiencing all the wonderful ideas that Chautauqua offers. So your giving is supporting that, has supported it. And I just want to say how grateful we are for that, and that we continue to hold that all that we need is provided. So let's say our offertory blessing together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. Just take those words in it, that you are that blessing, that vibration of divine love that blesses and multiplies not only us, but your world. So let's sing together.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
And I am holding our world up here. You can maybe see that. I have a little, if you don't, just imagine I have this squishy, wonderful world. And as we say, the unity prayer protection, wherever you are and whatever time you watch this, it doesn't matter, that all of our intentions in this prayer come together to bring light to the world. So together, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And here's the big one, and all is well. And so it is. And thank you for being part of our community.